Artificial intelligence can multiply anything that you give it, including shit. The number one thing that people type into Google is YouTube, and the number one thing that people ask YouTube is a question.
To shoot long form and then cut it up into micro messages, like a TikTok version. That's a great way to lure people in. In a half of a day, I can shoot almost a month's worth of content, and I don't have to do anything else with it. Everybody and their cousin who sells real estate is the number one at something.
When I'm consuming long form, it's like the emphasis is on the info of infotainment. And when I'm consuming short form, the emphasis is on the tainment. Welcome to The Leads Are Shit. Normally, my name is, every time my name is Taylor. But normally I'm here with Andrew. He's the owner of Real Estate Magazine and the founder of Just Sell Homes. But today it is myself and Ralph Ciancio. Am I saying that right?
Yeah, you got it good.
Did I hit it?
Yeah, it's good enough. It's good enough.
I've known you forever, but I don't often say your last name.
Well, you know what? I would have got you would have got my attention if you said it that way. If we were in a big room, I would have looked.
You would have looked. How do you say it?
Well, there's two ways. You could say four letters, CNCO, or you can say like two names, Chan and Cho. So you can say
Ciancio.
Ciancio. That's Italian.
Ah, that's like the Italian way to go. Okay. Well, I'm going to try to stay in my lane when it comes to that. But you're in Markham, Ontario.
You got it.
And you've been in real estate for quite some time now. You've got a great team. You work in just like Markham and Stouffville.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I've been selling real estate now 17 years and enjoying it. Of course, it's been a ride. And I run a small team out of Main Street, Unionville. We serve York Region and the surrounding area. So Markham, Stouffville, Richmond Hill. And which is, I mean, I know your audience is broad. So if we're looking at Toronto as a clock, somewhere between 12 o'clock and 3 o'clock, like that northeast quadrant of Toronto proper.
That's awesome. And over this time, we've talked a lot about marketing and sales. We were together on a master's advisory council. There's a lot that I got to kind of see into your business. And over time, I've seen you try, have so many things that worked out really well and also adapt to the market and change how you were approaching things over time. Like, just for example, I know that you had a time in your career where you were really looking to maximize everything around open houses. That was like a big lead generation tool for you. Recently, I saw you posting with Scott McGillivray.
You got it.
So with that's like celebrity endorsement. That's a pretty like wide spectrum. I also know that you work a lot inside of your database and try to be the mayor of Markham. So what's taking up your time right now in that realm? Like you're doing this thing with Scott right now?
Yeah, so Scott is really just an endorsement. That's basically creating leverage of trust. So Scott is known for a lot of people, within Canada, I mean, North America, as somebody that is on HGTV, has a great reputation in renovating homes, and really has a keen eye for investing in real estate. And we found that those values really overlapped with a lot with what we represented. And that's where we came up with it, the program that they have where they basically they endorse realtors within specific areas. And really that was just a leverage of trust play, just to kind of help us stand out from a crowd of agents.
Mm-hmm.
We talked about
open. That's really interesting. Like, have you done that before?
I haven't done anything like that in the past. I think that there's a big opportunity for agents right now to leverage things like social media influencers or leverage things like the media. And that's a great opportunity for people to, again, break through the noise and stand out as an authority in their market.
Absolutely. And it works, right? Like I was messaging with my cousin the other day and she was talking to me and she was sending me like videos that there was this agent that was in her area that was doing. And she's like, yeah, this guy really gets it. Like he really understands marketing. I can't believe how successful he is. He's one of the most successful people in our province, and he doesn't even live in a major city,
Wow.
right? And I'm like, that seems pretty interesting. But because I'm on the inside of the industry, I know that it's very likely that things are not as they appeared. And things were not as they appeared. Like it doesn't take me very long to call a couple of people and find out that this person isn't even in the top 20% of their city, let alone anywhere near the top of their province or notable from there. And I
Well,
think that that's something that you're kind of tapping into when you're saying, okay, well, it is tough for them to tell. What Scott McGillivray is doing is he's vetting people to see that they kind of fit with his endorsement and then broadcasting that so that
mhm,
people don't just get caught up in the noise.
and I think that there's a really fine line in terms of allowing your name to be, used for endorsement, and you don't want to dilute that because, the problem is everybody and their cousin who sells real estate is the number one at something. And that's all they talk about. I'm number one, I'm number one, I'm number one. And then that dilutes the value of number one altogether. And I think that what that does is now the message becomes a blank bullet. You're shooting blanks. And if your marketing message is shooting blanks, you're never gonna get the kill.
Absolutely. I'm wondering, like, when you take a look at these different things, there's probably a few different options there. Do you line them up? And do you like, do I go with Scott McGillivray or do I look for those people like Homes on Homes? He's a
Uh,
guy who does a lot with buildings, eh?
yeah, you know what the problem with Holmes, with Mike Holmes. I come from a background in home building, and when I used to work at Mattamy Homes, I would watch homes renovations or homes on homes because he would just like tear up some element of construction. For example, you know, the spray foam insulation. Look at this mess, and it should be 2 pounds of insulation, 2 pound closed cell insulation. And I'm watching this on Sunday night. And then when I was building homes at Mattamy, the next day I would get all these calls from people saying, what's the pound of insulation I have for my spray foam? So he
Mhm.
kind of became an antagonist for me, but he does great work. And ultimately, I think most of these personalities are driven by, elevating the industry. I think that that's something we need to do as a whole. Anyone watching on this call needs to think, instead of thinking individually, how do I, be better? Think, how do we as a group, as an industry, get better? Because, you and I have talked about this for years, in that we love what we do. And the question is, how do we do it longer? And I think the fear is, if we, if as an industry, we don't provide enough value for the marketplace, we're all fired, right? AI takes all of our jobs.
I totally I agree with part of that. Like I think that we're going to work together with AI, but you've kind of circled on a couple of things that are really interesting. You know, the way that these personalities kind of break in, I think a lot of people miss that part of marketing.
Mhm.
Like once people recognize you, especially associated with any type of expertise, that's something that can it's like a distribution vehicle like Costco,
Yeah.
right? It can really get you into places that you might not get in other places, like in other ways. But the noise is so much right now. You know, there's so many people that are making so much content, and AI is really opening the door to raising that level of noise. I think that a good way to put it would be that artificial intelligence can multiply anything that you give it, including shit.
Yeah.
And that's what that's what people will give it when they're not trading insight. But you
Mhm.
have such a unique background. So you've been in construction and you've been in real estate for so long, you've seen so much. So that along with messaging, it really does translate. You would have a lot of opportunity to talk to people about that love it or list it scenario, right?
Mhm. Well,
You can
it's
obviously argue about whether or not they have the right insulation. You understand these things at a construction level. Is that something that you do a lot of in your business?
yeah, definitely. And I think that one of the things that we do, I mean, we say that there's three C's that we export. It's context, contacts, and confidence. So the context to what we're looking at. Now, look, I was showing properties earlier today, beautiful family room, pink walls, white curtains. The buyer may have been looking at one thing, why do they paint this color? I'm going to change the curtains. I'm looking at what is the subfloor made out of? What's the R value of the windows? So that's where you bring context to what we're looking at. When we're looking at data for sale on the street, what's the context? Did that family just recently have a baby? That's why they're selling? Did they recently get a promotion? And that context is really valuable when you're trying to understand a valuation. When we look at the contacts, it's who do we help? Who will help you through this process that we know? Who's the next phone call you need to make, and how do we make that easy for you because it's someone we know. The I've got a guy attitude. And then from there it's confidence. Ultimately, I think when people are looking to make a decision like this, and push comes to shove, and they have their pen to paper, and they're looking up over their shoulder, they need to think, am I doing the right thing? Is this the right move? Right?
Hmm. Yeah, that's something that I find that a lot of people can make that kind of put those things together in front of someone, but doing it at a distance. Is there any way that you found to effectively communicate to people in a way that causes them to come your way?
Well, I mean, the Scott McGilvery endorsement does help, but I think ultimately I see us almost like we're in a flea market. I remember when I was in elementary school, we used to have these, the like a flea market or a bake sale, and we're all standing there, all these realtors, 100,000 agents across the GTA standing at their little table with homemade brownies, and it's our job to convey what is it that we do. And the people, the consumers, just walking around saying, you know what, I don't like brownies; they're too sweet. But I want something with orange flavor, and they're going to look for that. So I think understanding what our value proposition is for the market is going to make it easier. If we understand what we offer, it's going to be a lot easier for the consumer to understand who we are and what we do. And I think that that's one of the critical drivers.
Yeah, I think that that's something I work with in my business as well, because just like that scenario that you put out, these people are passing by a lineup that are like yelling at them, catcalling them. Hey, and somebody might be like, "Yeah, my brownies are the most chocolate," right? And that might get some people to come out of that lineup. Somebody else might yell out that their brownies are gluten free, and it's going to be that a different kind of response there. When you take a look at like the cat calls that you put out into the marketplace, what have you liked over time, or what do you like now?
I like the idea of communicating that we understand what's behind the walls. We like the idea of being an authority in that we have a plan and we know where we're heading, and we understand what challenges you may be dealing with, and we've already mapped out a solution. I've got a roadmap that avoids all the pitfalls and challenges you may face, and we help you get where you want to be faster.
I like that. So the way I summarize that is I'll be your guide. I have a plan separates you from so many people out there.
Yeah,
Look at all the clerks that meet people and they're like, "So, how can I help you?"
yeah.
It's like, "You don't know?" Because I don't know.
I like that. That's true.
Yeah, but to talk about the fact that you have a plan is something that really hits with people, that you've done this before over and over again, that you can prove that you're credible. That's a big part of my statement to the marketplace is save yourself or save your family from a three-star experience in real estate.
I love that. I love that.
Because I was thinking about all the things that I could just like try to land over and over again. And it translates, it's very similar to yours, which is I'll be your guide.
Mhm.
And that's what I think they want out of a guide is someone who can more consistently bring them to whatever. And I really considered, like, I've had clients give me feedback and they're like, man, I don't know if you've ever done any marketing, but every time I see your advertisement, I just see your name in three stars. And I'm like, that's a fair argument, right? Like, do I have it backwards?
Yeah.
But I also don't feel comfortable saying that whatever you imagine your real estate experience could be, I'm going to hit 5 stars every time.
Well, I would say that first of all, I love the saving you from a 3-star experience. I love it. Um, I think that you, and I've known you for years, and the work you put out, you strive for a 5-star experience. Now, will we always attain a 5-star experience? I don't know. Right? Again, it's all about expectations, and the reality is we can only control what we can control. We can't control if the buyer, you know, buys a car 2 weeks before closing and no longer qualifies for financing. I had nothing to do with that. All I can do is guide you in the process of, what that's like. But what I'll say is you're definitely calibrated with they want a great experience, and you want to provide them with a great experience, and that's where your systemization that you've done over so many years. And I'm sure anybody watching this would pick out how structured and your vision, the fact that you can anticipate problems, the fact that you've got a resolution already before the problem comes up, you've already solved it for most people.
Well, that's also what I see with you. When I see what last time I was in Markham, you let me walk through a house with you.
How did that go?
It was awesome because you're like a walking Swiss Army knife. You know, you come in and they're like, "Yeah, what about this?" You're like, "We should change that." They're like, "Well, I don't know." You're like, "No, this is how you do it." And then one, two, three. You got a problem, I'll solve it.
Yeah,
Yeah,
that,
yeah.
that's funny. Well, it's
And that
funny.
was really neat.
Yeah, the house that you came through, we ended up listing it. It's on the market now. So Taylor and I, so far, for what it's worth, we're batting 1,000 on team CMAs. That's maybe there's something here.
Yeah, that's awesome. Well, it was kind of a neat experience just not having been there. There's such a disparity in pricing. Now, you and I also shot some content while we were there, and that content looks crisp.
Is it better than my webinar from the car? Is there
Your audio is actually really good right now, which is great.
okay, great. Video
Yeah,
not
so when we put out content like that, like when you shoot video that's talking a little bit about context, I guess, because we were framing up Markham versus Edmonton.
Mhm.
And I imagine that there's some people out there because we were talking about how Edmonton was so affordable, right? But the people that like Markham are going to be like, yeah, we had to work to be here and we're here and
Yeah.
we like it here, you know? So putting out that's kind of framing context a little bit that way. What type of content do you have planned when you think about like messages that you want to send, things you want to talk about? Like, what do you like to talk about in front of the camera?
So, what we try to do is I make notes of any questions that come up from clients or, even phone calls, just random people, conversations at parties. I make notes of them. And I know that there's a million things you can do. You can go to, Answer the Public or, just Google, Markham real estate search news and get these, macro topics. But, when what the practice of writing down the questions that have come up in my week and using them as a basis point for content that we shoot for YouTube or social media or for direct to consumer. The key thing is number one, it's real time, the pulse of what my ideal client, because ideally I'm talking to them in the conversation, my ideal client, what questions they have, and then I create content that would syndicate that same message so I don't have to repeat it so many times. And also people feel connected because that may be a question. If somebody watching the video sees my answer, they may say, "Oh, that's a question I never thought of," but it makes perfect sense. It's calibrated. But the byproduct is I've become a much better listener of problems. I like my family and I, we have a thing called just a sound. And my kids, I've trained them that if they hear this sound, it means I'm talking to you. So I can be literally at a party with 30 people. I make the sound. They look up. What is it that? Immediately. It's because they're paying attention for it, right? Usually it means they're in trouble. But instead of me,
Mm.
but the idea is, and the reason why we came up with this, because I never wanted to just scream my kids' names out because we don't know who's listening. Like I could be at a park and I watch out, Julian. And then now everyone knows my kid's name. Some safety problems there. Uh, But now by asking questions to clients and listening for the answer, I'm so sharp. I pay really, really close attention when someone asks a question. Like it goes to a special part in my brain saying, they asked this question. This is their concern.
Yeah, that's something that really hits for me as well, especially when it lands in this zone. There's this zone that's just above where the average person seems to like consider. And then it's into this level where it's not quite like it's the gap between what the amateur knows and what professionals know. So as you were thinking about that, I was talking to somebody the other day and they had a cat and they were talking to me about like selling with cats. And then I kind of roll it around in my mind a little bit. And I think that in my market right now, things are really fast. And it could be that you only have to host showings for one weekend. Like there'll be a lot, it'll be busy. But now it's got me thinking like, I think that this has been the best seller's experience for dogs in a long time. You know, when you look at it from the dog's perspective, like it's
Brilliant.
much easier for somebody to be able to get that dog out for one weekend, you know, find somewhere to be with them. Whereas normally, a lot of times, traffic is like two or three showings a week, and the dog's either got to be in the house. I don't know if many people have showed properties where there's a dog barking from a crate, but it's really hard to like that house. So these are some things that I kind of think about because that just comes up in my mind. Like there's a lot of people out there that fit my ideal client profile that have dogs.
Yeah.
So talking about it from their dog's experience side is maybe something I'll think about trying for my video.
I
Is
think
that what you
that's brilliant. I love the idea that instead of saying my homes take less days on the market, I'm the number one speed agent, you say, hire me. Your dog will love it. Way less days in the kennel.
Yeah.
Instead
Measure it as days in kennel.
yeah.
That's a good twist. So what else comes to your mind when you think about the things that are in the general discourse around you that are kind of coming to your mind when it comes to these videos ideas? Because you're really good at this.
Well, I mean, one thing that I've done as of recent, because I've been shooting video for a while, it's just constantly trying to find the consistency of it. That's the killer. And, like going to the gym, you need an accountability. Well, I need an accountability partner. So hiring, outsourcing that, and having someone who's on a schedule definitely helps me because I react best. My team laughs when they say, how do I get your attention? I said, put your hand on my shoulder. I said, if I'm face to face with you or you're physically holding my hand or my arm, you got my attention. But if it's through text or through email or through WhatsApp or through a direct message, it's hard to hold my attention. And not always, but I'm just saying to hear the noise. And I say that so that we can remember what our clients are going through is that the best way for us to engage with them is to be face to face. So having an accountability partner that happens to be an excellent content creator makes shooting video a lot easier. Um, I know for a lot of people watching, maybe they're thinking, well, it sounds expensive. Well, if any hack that you can do to come up with a consistency to replicate a great behavior is worth it, right? You just have to determine how much is the value for that reward.
Hmm. And I think a lot of people should try to decide whether or not this is the vehicle for them. If you're thinking about it, I would imagine all of the things that you could do that would work like this.
Mm-hmm.
So essentially, you put out a ton of videos, almost like postcards, into the world, and a percentage of those videos land where they need, like the message lands on ears that will hear it, and then it turns into a DM, right? That's normally the way that agents that are actually successful at using social media experience it.
Mm-hmm.
There's a whole bunch of agents that measure their success in followers. They measure it in likes. They measure it in volume like that. But a whole bunch of them never convert out of it.
Mm-hmm. Well,
So
that's metric.
converting is key.
Yeah, yeah.
So when you think about like how many of these postcards you kind of send out into the world, the cool thing is some of them can be reused.
Mm-hmm.
But that's how to build it backwards and be like, all right, you know what? Per DM, I'm probably going to have to put out like 20 videos.
Mm-hmm.
And so then how much time do I want to spend doing this? How often do I want to do it to see if it's catching? Because over time that will improve, right? Like you'll just get better at it. You'll get better at making messages that are fit for ears that will do business with you. You'll do better at putting them in the places where they'll be found more often. These all things take time to work.
Well, we polish our skill, we polish our ability to communicate, and also these things have an afterlife. Printed postcard disappears, goes in the garbage, it's gone. But we can syndicate this message. The same video can be repurposed lots of times, right?
Hmm. And when you take a look at like the video that you like, you do a lot of like general explainer or general in this experience videos. Maybe about frequently asked questions.
Yeah, we're building a library right now. I mean, currently we're working on a project where we're creating micro content, and just very, very niche. And we think that that's where the market's going to go. I think the idea of being an influencer and having, you know, 100,000 likes or 100,000 followers rather. Um, I think that some people will see them as an authority, but to your point, I think fake is found fast. And I don't think it takes much time to realize that somebody who's in Tulum, months at a time, I can't be selling real estate here very often. I'm not picking on anyone specific. I'm secretly kind of jealous that these people are like living the life in Tulum, selling real estate in the GTA. I'm like, that's a life. So I have a hard time living here and doing it. Can't imagine being so far. But that being said, the idea of creating content consistently and doing it in a way that you're answering questions for people makes it a lot easier to repurpose the content. Right.
So I saw in your office you have this accountability partner that comes in and it's every couple of weeks, yeah?
Accountability, you mean like a
The
coach?
guy that does the videos as well. You said that he's an accountability partner and a content creator.
So yeah, so I can give a shout out. Right now, we're working with Cameron Gray Media,
Dude's
and
awesome.
yeah, Cameron's great. He started off as a YouTuber himself, understands the idea of creating content, and then he works in the real estate industry as a niche. Works with some other great agents in our office. Cash Alvani. I'm saying his name wrong, but Cash. People know him as Cash. And what's really great is that because he's working with hyper local agents, we're almost like a think tank. So he's saying, you know what, I did this video for Cabbage Town and it worked really, really well. Let's apply it for Main Street Markham. And we're
Mhm.
not competing because somebody in Main Street Markham is not moving to Cabbage Town, and vice versa. But the
I don't
idea,
think anybody wants to move to Cabbage Town.
yeah.
I
So
see what you mean though. And Cam was really good to work with because he's so collaborative. So we talked about concepts with him before we shot, and then the way it came out afterwards was super crisp. Like his technical ability was really good, and the sound was on point.
yeah, I think you know, having somebody that can help curate the topics is really important. If that's your wheelhouse, if your people, the viewers on this webinar or this show feel like they're creative enough to create their own content, then that's great. If not, just get somebody that can get the ball rolling for you. And I'm of the philosophy of set it and forget it. I want to come out, do what I need to do, and then someone else has to edit and prepare posting and find the best shots because my brain is too critical, and I'll never make a decision on what the best 2 minutes of a 30-minute talk are in order to post. It's better to
Yeah,
get
you really want somebody who will help you scope it, right?
yeah.
Like I've worked with a few different people in creating content, and the I think it really helps for someone to tell me how I'm being viewed. Like they can see it from the other side of the screen, and if they're good, they can help you convey what you want to like show to actually be viewed. Because man, does that ever miss a lot of the time.
Well, we wear a lens of our own ego, right? And we see the world through our own eyes. Rarely will I buy something without asking my wife if she likes it. And my grandfather used to say, don't wear what you like, wear what other people like, because they got to look at you. And the same is true.
That's a good one.
Yeah. Like, why am I wearing the suit that I like? My wife has to like it. Like, I don't need to impress everyone, just her. Like, ultimately, that's the vote that counts. So when we're looking at content, it's not really what I think will resonate. It's what, a professional saying, this is the message we're trying to communicate. This is the cadence or the tone we want, and go from there. So,
Hmm.
but
That's
you
a
tell
good way to put it.
when you're developing content, because you've been creating amazing content for years. Um, is there some focus or system that you use in terms of how do you determine what content to create and how do you deliver that?
Uh, a lot of the time, it's the same thing of being in the flow. So I've done some of the same systems that you have. For those that haven't tried it, Answer the Public is a pretty good muse. What it is it's a working off of the back of Google Trends. And when you type in something like real estate in your location, it shows you what people are asking Google. But that kind of leads you to where we are right now because the number one thing that people type into Google is YouTube. And the number one thing that people ask YouTube is a question. So that's kind of what you're looking for is what are they asking? A lot of the time when the people ask real estate questions, the answers they get are not geographically correct to them. So it becomes frustrating really quickly because you're like, man, I just want to learn like a little bit about house types. Well, what Ralph calls house, like certain styles of houses in Markham, doesn't exist in Edmonton. And even if you tried to search them on the MLS, you wouldn't be able to find them. The drop down menus are different.
Mhm.
So that's why there's kind of space for everybody. When you're creating video content over and over and over again, you're taking over a part of the internet that's trying to talk to you, or they're trying to talk about stuff that you can sell.
Mhm.
And that seems to be the real key. Now I tend to be a little bit more targeted at my social media. So I'm just changing phases right now. For the last, I'm gonna say 3 years, maybe almost 4 years, our entire team has been in studio every 14 days, creating content, video after video after video. We prepare for it, we talk about these questions, and we shoot it out. And it has done a great job at raising awareness around us, but it hasn't done a great job of getting those DMs.
Mm.
So that's the thing that I'm kind of moving to next. Like I was just talking to a mutual friend of ours, Tom, and he was talking about using long form YouTube to actually explain things, especially when you talk about somebody like you've been doing this for 17 years. And the experience of being with you like in person is fantastic. But I don't think that you're just a Broadway actor. You know, the stuff in front of camera, to find that place where it really feels like just like having wine with you and things like that, that really like draws people in. And imagine that it was your favorite cousin and you were just like, well, okay, here's the start to finish of how a pro would actually buy a house.
Mhm.
Like we would look at it different than you, and here's the deal. And to go on for over an hour, that's what people are looking for now is these like deep explanations. And my guess is that no one else in your geography really has this.
Well, not yet that I've seen, but again, I think that the people are up and coming with their own version of it, and the evolution of where we're heading will, we'll see who the winner is. I agree with you. I think long form content is an excellent tool. I consume a lot of long form content, but I realize that I also consume a lot of short form content, and that's where the idea of being able to shoot long form and then cut it up into micro messages, like a TikTok version. That's a great way to lure people in because it's kind of like a taste test. It's like the Costco sampler, right?
Yeah, and I'm wondering if it will work the same because I think the world is doing video this way. And they're taking these long forms and then cutting it out and cutting it up and distributing it short form. But when I take a look at how I consume, when I'm consuming long form, it's like the emphasis is on the info of infotainment.
Mm-hmm.
And when I'm consuming short form, the emphasis is on the tainment
Mm.
part of infotainment.
Yeah.
So it's almost like maybe the long form has to be a little bit more informative, a little bit more technical and in depth, but should still be like watchable and enjoyable.
Yeah.
But the short form, I really feel as though it has to be more spicy. It has to be more like modeled. Like the model that we were talking about before, Evan Carmichael.
Yeah.
Is that the guy?
Yeah.
And so to get that hook that kind of starts us off, and then to raise the stakes, like get the hook, explain a little bit, raise the stakes, but really use an economy of words.
Mhm.
That seems to be like hot and sizzle right now in video.
Well, it depends who you ask for sure. And I think it's important that, a great practice would be to ask our clients, the people that have made those DMs or have called, what was it that mattered to you? I got some great insight from a future client, a young client, my son. He says, "Dad, I've been seeing your posts pop up, and like they look good, but sometimes they're a little bit boring. Did you ever think about maybe on the bottom half, like have Subway Surfer or something like a video game playing? Have you seen those videos
Yep.
where someone's like cutting with a hot knife, they're cutting through like Play-Doh in the meantime, and the video that you're actually watching is at the top half. It's just to distract the eyes as you're consuming this multitasking generation. I said, oh man, Subway Surfer, that's a tough one.
Yeah, but when you take a look at how people consume as well, when you're watching a large screen, how often are you not also using a small screen?
Multi-screen households.
And that's because television is so friggin' slow. And so to have that at the same time that you're doing anything like surfing social media on your phone or whatever else seems to be the world that we live in. Maybe that's the demand that he's communicating. Is like, hey, listen, let's all just agree that this is high audio value, low video value.
Yeah, that's exactly.
And now let's supplement and put in something worth watching. So if you were thinking about what to put at the bottom
Yeah.
and you think about your ideal client profile, what would you put?
Hmm. That's a great question. I don't think video games. Maybe something like I see a lot of videos where there's like a motivational tone and there's B-roll of somebody running a marathon or climbing a mountain. Maybe something more like that would be a little lend to inspiring or taking action. I think the idea of watching someone play video games is probably not going to drive, may catch some attention, may get the hook, so their eyes are distracted, they're trying to see, can I stay on whatever. There's a video game where you're staying on top of a tiny bridge, and the whole time you're watching saying, are you going to fall off, are you going to fall off? And then while they're watching that, gives me an extra 8 or 10 seconds to convey that I know what I'm talking about, or convey that I understand what your problem is, or convey that I have a plan.
That's the hit. That's the exact thing. Is like the first second of any video is fighting for
Yeah.
the next three. And those three are fighting for the next 10.
Yeah.
And if there's any way that you could show something that kind of fits, but also is one of those almost like cliffhangery or like anything that continues to pull attention,
Mm-hmm.
like for some reason, like dominoes, like videos of people like
Exactly.
knocking over dominoes, that could be it. You could also try to hit your ideal client profile.
Mm-hmm.
Like I send my wife and I have reached that level of old couple where the only videos she watches on social media are the ones that I send her. And, and I mostly send her videos of like, funny like dog stuff and things like that. And so I think animals, Andrew would probably also agree with that. He uses cute animal pictures at the bottom of his blast emails and finds that that increases the open rates.
Mm-hmm.
But I think that your son's definitely onto something.
Yeah. I think it's another version of that is showing two different faces, right? We see a version of posting now where there's two people talking to each other. Top half is one head, the bottom half is another. Um,
Mhm.
I'm not sure. I mean, it's really depends on what you're talking about.
Have you considered doing any reaction video?
You know what? I see people doing reaction video in terms of like watching or reading through a news article and talking about what they see. And it's probably a good idea. I'd be open to it. I just
What about those non-verbal reaction videos? Like the ones that like David Beckham does,
I
where it's like a crazy like kids soccer video,
yeah.
but it shows him watching and you just see like his face reactions.
Hmm.
And sometimes he says something along with it. There's a few of these, but
Yeah.
I find them interesting as well. I imagine you'd have to consume a fair amount of content to be able to find stuff
Yeah,
for this, but
yeah. I just want to. My kids introduced me to Kendrick Lamar, and they ain't like us. What's the song called? They
not
ain't
like us.
not like us. I thought driving through a neighborhood with like, you know, for sale signs that are there forever, and be like, they ain't like us. They ain't like us. Well, I don't know if that's going to go the wrong way. Or like, I thought about touring properties like horribly staged or not staged, and just be like, hey, here I am. They ain't like us. They ain't like us, you know?
Yeah, that's cool. So that type of like heavy entertainment side seems to be like a different play. Like we see Matt Leonetti go there, we see Cash. That's where he plays all the time. And it's almost like a personality play where some people are going to work with you just because they like the cut of your jib, you know?
Hey, well, you know what? I think it's true. You need to be authentic because that's who people want to deal with. But I think that there's a lot of focus, a lot of emphasis on all these things. And if I'm being totally honest with you, instead of spending like the reason why I like working with Cam is that I can shoot in a half of a day. I can shoot almost a month's worth of content, and I don't have to do anything else with it. So that's great leverage. And I've got video or content that I can repurpose and use in different things. But for most people, I would say your better use of time. So we talk about the resources being time, money, and focus. And if you're going to spend your resources somewhere, instead of spending 30 hours in a month creating content, spend 30 hours trying to have an authentic conversation with another person. That's it. Just, you know, Toby Salgado. He's the host of uh, Superstar Agent. What is it? Do you know what? The podcast?
No.
Uh, oh, it's an amazing one. It'll come to me. Um, yeah, a Rockstar Agent. I think it's a amazing podcast. But he says everyone thinks that they have such a great database and great clients. He goes, give me 15 minutes in line at Costco, and I'll convert anyone. Because I don't care how nice your handwritten cards are, or your videos that you post online, or your email you send out. He goes, give me 15 minutes waiting in line, and I'll convert them. And
Hmm.
I love that idea. I do it all the time. Like I say that prospecting isn't a thing, it's a way of thinking. It's a state of mind. And when I'm talking to my agents on my team, I'll communicate that it's not about being in the office, hammering the calls, or sending out so many messages, or creating this content that's going to make the phone ring. I said everyone's focused on making the phone ring. So why don't you focus on making your client's phone ring? Why do you have to be the receiver of the ring? Be the giver of the ring. Hey, Taylor, I was watching something on Jeopardy. Edmonton came up. I thought of you, pal. Just wanted to give you a quick call. That's it.
Hmm.
Wow. Like, isn't that what you're trying to do with 30 hours a month in content creation and these email blasts and these billboards? It's just pick up the phone, be of value, be interested, not interesting, right?
That definitely works. And it works for you. Like there's so many times that people don't think like that. They don't think about the fact that people are having real estate conversations whether or not you are there.
Mhm.
They don't think about the fact that your relationship with your client is challenged every Wednesday right now because the lady that sits next to her at gymnastics is an agent. Those people may not be as good as the guy you described that will convert them in 15 minutes at Costco, but we are constantly, our relationships with our own clients, the people that say you are my agent, those are constantly under threat. Like internal marketing is more important than external. And I like where your head goes there, especially for somebody who has such a big database like you do.
I remember actually you and I were chatting about 5 years ago, and we were talking about where the market's heading, and I think you had used the term that you want to focus more on defense than offense.
Mm.
And the idea of, we can go out and try to add more people to the database. That's great. That's important. But it's also important to secure that the database doesn't leave. Like I look at our business kind of like being gym owners. You collect these registrations from people, You want to have a full gym, but you constantly need to bring in new blood, new memberships because other people are leaving, right? And so the less people that leave, the less sales you need to make. And I think that that's a critical shift that we need to make as an industry, in that if we can provide value for the people that know, like, and trust us, we don't need to be as noisy as marketers. I think as an
Mhm.
industry, we need to put the focus on advertising the products, not the service. Mark Arnstein in North Toronto, him and I were chatting a few years back about, these billboards he had. And I said, Mark, what about the idea of putting a house up there rather than your face? I said, I love the idea of outdoor marketing that advertises a property. And he's been doing it now. Now it sounds like I'm taking credit. It's definitely his idea. It came from a conversation, that from a while ago. But if you look up Mark Ernstein, you'll see on his social media some of his advertisements where it's literally a huge billboard with a property for sale.
Mhm.
What do you think other sellers are thinking? They're thinking, I want to hire that guy, or I want my house to be there.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that that's a lot of what marketing is how do I get that? Right? Oh, this is just like you were saying, prospecting is a state of mind. House hunting is also a state of mind for the people that are engaged in it. They're so primed to recognize things that are associated with that as they go. Another place that we're playing defense and not offense is AI. And I'm wondering, just circling back to that comment we were talking about earlier with having the two screens, I wonder when AI is going to be good enough that as I talk to you, it could match my analogies on that second part of the screen.
Mm-hmm.
Like that would be amazing because that's hitting on what you were suggesting is like the visuals that go along with what you're
I
saying.
bet you if you shot a small video and went into chat and said, come up with a B-roll video to put on the bottom, I bet you it would answer that right now. I think
Hmm.
back in the prompt, the technology's there. Like, chat is solving way more complex things than create an engaging video that visualizes what I'm talking about. That for sure it can. For sure it can. Um, but I would say, as we talk about I have some theories of the future. And I came to the realization, I'm on a macro sense, as we're heading towards 5, 10, 20 years from now. I think one of the most important skills we're going to have as human beings is to be able to connect in a meaningful way, in a face to face. I think that people are not going to believe anything they read or watch of us 10 years from now because of deep fakes, because of AI generated videos, because of the idea. Like, anytime I read anything now, my first thought is, was this written by a person or chat?
Mm.
And as soon as I realize it's like, my financial advisor sends me something, it's written by chat. And I'm like, man, you don't even care about me. Now, how are we gonna break through that noise and say this is not chat? It's gonna be indiscernible. But face,
Mm.
the hand on the shoulder, that's where it's gonna matter.
I totally agree with that. Like it could be a phase where, the movies basically had their heyday, but now they're so over distributed that people want to go back to see someone live on the stage.
Yeah. Yeah.
I think that COVID kind of showed us that we do want more connection.
Hmm.
I'm really taking a look at my business next year and wheeling a lot of my online to offline. I'm going to be way more invested marketing wise in events than I am in web lead generation.
Hmm.
Mind you, I really liked the web lead generation vehicle as a marketing for a hard market. When people didn't want to come out and see open houses because they just didn't care, like those types of things, it was so much better to be able to send info into their phone wherever they were.
Hmm.
Because a lot of the time they're just hiding from fear. Whereas in now, my market is kind of moving and shaking. And after watching your market move and shake, I'm like, man, this is like the first time I get to use this part of my playbook,
Yeah.
you know?
Yeah. Well, you know what? I mean, I think the fact that you were able to pay attention to what's going on in other people's markets allowed you to be a Nostradamus of Edmonton. You could, anticipate what other markets would be like in Edmonton because you've seen what other markets are like across Canada and North America. I think your strong relationships with other agents. I know you're really close with top agents, like top around North America. And the fact that you share a coffee table or a dinner table with them allows you to see where the future is going for Edmonton. And I think it's important that you have that vision. But again, I think teetering between the different strategies at the right time, it's determining when the right time is, and that's the challenge, right?
I'm just glad I have those clubs in the bag. Like it was like what last December, we're in your basement.
Yeah, that's funny.
And man, there was a lot of real estate power in that basement that day, right? Like and we're talking as you're going through a multiple offer scenario,
Yeah,
you know?
yeah.
And it's neat because you had really developed that shot for a long period of time. And then I got to wingman on it. And now in my market, I feel like I've got a hot tub time machine,
Yeah.
right? Because the strategies got so developed over the years that Toronto, the general Toronto area was so hot,
Yeah.
right? And here, most agents they've never seen this club before.
So do you
So
want
it's
to
interesting
you want to
that
see
way.
the next, you want to see the next phase?
What's
Right?
that?
What's going to reach you? It's going to probably take some time till it reaches you because people need to get used to a offer presentation date. Like that has to be really ingrained. Offer presentation date. I know you guys have that. Well, do you have that now? Would you say is it prevalent?
Yep, I've got two listings offer presentation on Monday.
Yeah. Um, and we can chat also about gamifying that. How do we structure that in a way that you can do two or three or four in a night? And we did that for years. Um, what I'm seeing as a trend now. So we saw what we called transparent pricing. This is what I want. The olden days, I'll negotiate when an offer comes in. Then we saw, artificially low price and offer presentation date. And then that was clear to the market. The signal of offers on Thursday meant we're expected to pay more and have no conditions and so on. And then now the new trend that I've noticed is abnormally low price, no offer presentation date. When you speak to the agent, they say, "Oh, my client's expecting $300,000 more," and we say, "Well, you've been on the market for 2 months and there's no offer date." They say, "Yeah, we're just expecting that price." So like it's made the market more murky for buyers, way less transparency. So people have no idea really what's going on in terms of the price. And that's what we're seeing now. It gives experienced agents more of an advantage in that we understand what the value of the home is. We're not just telling our buyers, so what's the most you're willing to pay for this? Because to me, I think, well, why are you getting paid as an agent if you're just asking me what the most I'm willing to pay for this is? That's not a good drug dealer, right? Like that's not a good middleman to say, I'm negotiating for you. What's the most you're willing to pay? And
Man, that sounds so disjointed. Because it sounds like somebody's using hot market strategy in a cold market and just trying to justify it. It doesn't sound like this would be effective. Like I saw in using that strategy in a hot market where you use a gateway price and then hold for offers with an offer presentation date, you can see how the mechanisms work. But in this circumstance, the reason you can't see how the mechanisms work is because they don't.
yeah, yeah,
Yeah, that mismatch is. I think that that's probably the worst situation, and that's probably what I'm in at risk from. When you were talking about just the Rolodex of top agents,
yeah.
these are all very specialized strategies. Like you have to adapt them to your market. You have to know that you're using them at the right time. You better find places that are safe to test
Hmm.
or people that are comfortable with talking to you about going through testing.
Hmm.
I remember the first person that I was running one of those like dynamic strategies with. They interviewed me and then another agent, and then they came back to me, and they said we interviewed an agent that's been an agent for 30 years, and she said you're crazy. She said you're a maniac and irresponsible. And I was like, why did you guys pick me? And they're like, well, she seemed to do what everybody else seemed to do. What you were suggesting makes sense, and you're confident. So exactly what you started us off with is context, confidence. What was the third C?
Context, contacts, and and confidence.
Hmm.
So
Yeah,
like
absolutely.
your contacts, I think you clearly communicated. I've seen the future and the past of this market across North America. I know what's coming around the corner. I know what we're heading into, and I'm not going to learn how to strategize for how to sell your home in this market because I've got the playbook from the top agent in Dallas, and I've got the top agent in California, and I've got the 368th agent in Markham. All of them on your Rolodex.
Hmm. Well, that's awesome. When you so we got a couple of people here that have been making some comments that's in the back channel here. Anthony Brown loves the car Wemadar, and also
It's makes
he
authentic.
he just loves connecting with people. So he was excited about the face-to-face connection.
Well, Anthony's one of the best at it, right? I mean, he's one of the best, purely authentic. And I think the idea of getting away from a screen, like we talk about multiple screen consumption, but when you're talking to someone in an engaging conversation, it's face to face. It's one thing. Your focus is there.
Hmm. And then the other person chiming in here is Matt Richling. So he's just talking about your positivity.
Well,
Now that's something that I've seen, show through and through, right?
mhm.
Is that you're always kind of looking for like, oh, how do I do this? But I remember one thing that you mentioned to me that really stuck with me. And you were like, nobody is a net negative.
Mhm.
If you bring in good people and help them, no one will be a net negative. Like, don't worry about the payroll so much. Yeah, I draw a lot from that as well. So I share that as well with you, Matt. Now, those are a couple of comments that are in here. We're going to close shortly, but if anybody else has any questions for Ralph, please swing it out there. And in the meantime, Ralph, what do you think when you take a look at anything that you're going to tweak or change coming into 2025? What's on your mind?
We're going to be getting closer to the client. We're going to be working the database more than new clients. That's not the driver's not going to be bringing more people to the party. It's keeping people at the party. That's the vision, and that's through literally through hosting more parties and client events. So more macro events we've got dialed in. We seem that seems to be working quite well. I'm satisfied with that. It's more micro. So how do I get 10, 20, 30 people that are common, linked somehow, either social networks or they all got dogs or they got kids in high school. What's the commonality or no kids and they love, drinking scotch. What is it that I can do to make a hyper connected community? And that's going to be our focus for 2025. I think this is always this idea of growth being how do I sell more homes? I'm not necessarily driving to sell more homes next year. I'm really happy with the numbers we did this year. It's really how do I sell them better and how do I enjoy the process as much as I can.
That's a great way to look at it. And you're probably going to find out so much about your database in trying to make these micro events. Like we always talk about Ford being family, occupation, recreation, and dreams. And just going through your database and starting to, make targets around that will help you start to see links between people. You may even find people in your database that are already connected. I love that when I drop into a sphere and you end up with working with one person and then their friends and their other friends and their other friends and their other friends. Yeah.
So I love that. And, what we've been doing too. So we host client events and we do, sometimes we'll have a photographer there taking family portraits, which has been a great success because I think that we have so many photographic moments that matter, but we never remember them by printing them out. So we've been doing that at all of our client events. And, the vision there is that if I go to a client's home for a coffee, I can look on a wall and see this progression of their whole life through the events that we hosted. And another layer of that is if John recommended Sally, who recommended Thomas, having them in a group shot. And then there's this linkage of we're all connected, our commonality is Ralph, right?
Mm, that hits, especially when you take a look at pictures tend to get places. They go home with people. They go on social media. And also there's going to be people that know the other people in that picture that are not in that picture.
Yep.
And
FOMO.
that really keys it up.
Yeah, yeah. It's FOMO, but we're gonna change to R, fear of missing Ralph. That's a FOMAR. Is that a thing?
I
Fear.
like it.
Yeah.
Fear of missing out on Ralph. It could be FOMO.
For more information, click the link in the description of the bio.
Well, that's awesome. See, that's exactly the experience that I normally get of being with you. Like,
Uh,
man, do we ever laugh? And I appreciate this setting as well because interviewing you is fun too.
I appreciate the opportunity to be here and to be able to connect with your viewership. I'm a fan of the show. I watch. I should be commenting more. I'm going to comment. Next one, I'm going to roast you. But you know what I got to do? I have to put on my bucket list for 2025 to visit Edmonton because we've connected so many times, and it's we've met throughout North America, through the States and Canada, but we've never met in Edmonton, and we should definitely. I'd love to come to your stomping ground and see how you roll.
Yeah, buy 1 or 5 houses while you're here.
That works for me. Listen,
Just with people coming in, buy one get one free, like we were talking about from Markham to Edmonton.
yeah,
Well, I appreciate you taking the time. I'm excited with what Andrew's working on with Real Estate Magazine.
yeah,
Like
sure.
he's doing a good job, and also part of my job is to find the in crowd. So that Rolodex of top agents that you're included in, this is going to be the next thing that we all go around North America to follow.
Well, talking about Andrew and that kind of I call it the rebirth of Real Estate Magazine. Is that he's now given a new vision, a focus, and I think he's doing some excellent things, excellent work. I think he's taken a vehicle that was having some challenges or troubles, and I don't know the details of the past, but I just know that the future is brighter, and he's been doing an excellent job. Yeah, he's great.
Yeah, it's almost like he dusted off an old race car. And
Yeah,
it didn't take much, but man, it sounds good and it's going to come around. But
yeah.
we just need more people to know about it and the right people to know about it because every hot community in the real estate world starts with like the in crowd, that group at the top of real estate that we all try to at least spend some time with each year, you know?
Mhm.
Like, I think that top agents in all of their schedules will have somewhere that is probably equal to the amount of time that other people take on vacation. And they dedicate this time to finding their peers because they're so damn hard to find.
No, I agree with you. And you know what? If we look at our industry and look at our profession as a true profession, as a true company, well, what does the average company spend on research and development? And when I hang out with you, Taylor, it's like I'm in the R&D world. It's like I'm in Musk's garage, or watching Batman. It's like where Alfred keeps like the Batmobile, and you kind of show me what's working there. And I think that R&D shortens the learning curve for most people, and gives them an opportunity to bring a great idea back. Right?
Yep. And it's normally 10% of the overall resources it'll take for the project in money and time that most corporations use to investigate whether or not they want to start a new initiative. This is where those ideas come, but don't just run them out. Sit and cook on them a little while, test them a little bit. The more you tweak, the fewer shots you have to take. And you and I have taken so many shots together. We both watched each other have incredible victories and consoled each other when it didn't go as planned. But the idea is that we started a lot of shit. And that's the same thing I invite other people to do. I really appreciate everybody who came and who listens to this. Definitely reach out. This is a take part podcast, so you can come in and roast me just like Ralph plans to do next week.
Oh, carve 'em up.
And if people want to find you, where's the easiest place to find you online?
I mean, if you're looking online, I mean, you could just Google Ralph Remax, and then I generally pop up near the top. But if you search Ralph Ciancio Homes through any social channel, you'll find us. And again, I'm located in Markham. And if you're ever in the area, open invitation. My office on Main Street, Unionville. But if you're ever in the Markham area or York region, if you're coming in from out of town, drop me a line. We can definitely connect, grab a coffee. I'll make you feel right at home.
He is not lying. I've been to his house. It's awesome. Thanks again. Really appreciate it. And we'll look forward to having you back.
Thanks for having me on. I appreciate it. Thank you.
Cheers.